Hi, I'm Dr. Sam Karen, also known as Dr. C in Elwood. This is the first lesson in my Golden Memories series. I initially started working on this project before COVID-19. The virus led to the cancellation of my St. Patrick's Day talk at the local retirement home, and as you might guess, I have still not been able to perform that live show. As a 73-year-old man, I am personally aware of the problem some of my generation have remembering words and remembering immediate and recent memories. This led to my decision to share with my peer group some old memories and encourage them to share some of their old memories with me as well. My initial interest is and continues to be people in assisted living homes. However, last night I finally realized that I should share my happy memories, including my Jewish memories, with my landsmen as well. We Jews are a strong support group, peer support group, and we can benefit greatly from the support of our peers at all times, and particularly during a crisis like this pandemic. Since I have been recording my memories, I have personally noticed some positive personal results to these exercises. To begin with, they have somewhat taken my mind off of the virus. This helps me to feel even better. Secondly, my confidence as a public speaker has increased. Even though I am able to record these golden memories with little or no rehearsal and without a script, right now I am using a script because I want to make sure that I get this first introductory lecture exactly right. I retired from my job as a child psychologist over 3 years ago. Since that time, I have not been challenged by my work, which has led to me worrying that I might be experiencing the use it or lose it phenomena and that my mental skills have been deteriorating slightly. Whenever I forget a short-term memory or misplace something like the movie remote, the TV remote, I have been telling myself that my memory is failing due to my age and lack of mental activity. Now, it is possible that some of the problems are due to my age, but I need to remember that I have always had certain memory problems. When I was in the first grade, I had a teacher named Miss Crystal, and for the entire school year, I called her Miss Diamond. Now, in retrospect, maybe she even enjoyed being a diamond instead of just a crystal, but who knows? Anyway, when we tell ourselves that our memory abilities are deteriorating, we can experience self-fulfilling prophecies, and things then go from bad to worse. Since I have been recording these memories, I worry much less about my memory abilities. I am also having a lot of fun recording these lessons. In other words, I personally am experiencing the benefits that I hope some of you students will also experience. A little bit about these classes. The reason that I call these golden memories is because they are worth their weight in gold. These memories have been with us for decades, and yet we still remember them and enjoy sharing them with others. Sometimes we might not get all of the details exactly right, but we do the best that we can do. Those of us who have problems remembering what happened yesterday or last week should be proud that we still can remember these golden oldies. The way these classes will work. At the beginning of each class, I will announce the memory topic for that class. Then I will share with you one of my memories on that topic. Next, Elwood and I will discuss my memory. We will talk about the lesson that can be learned from my memory of the day. Elwood will finally provide his last thought of the day. If you would like the opportunity of us sharing your memories with the other students, you will then be given time to write down your own memories on the topic or on another interesting happy memory, if you so desire. You will be able to submit the memories to me in either writing, audio, or video format. You will let me know if you would like me to perform a Dr. C and Elwood dialogue in a lesson of the day on your memory. Not all memories submitted will be used. We will occasionally include some pantomimes performed by Donna, our resident mime. At the end of the talks, we might talk about some unique toys, my specialty as a retired child psychologist, or have a short chair yoga exercise, also from Donna, our resident chair yoga expert, or even share one of your own golden memories. Today's golden memory is the Passover Seder. I hope that you participate in, enjoy, and benefit from these lessons. Next, I present the Chinese restaurant Seder memory. Today I'm going to begin our memory with an old joke. And the story begins in ancient times. There was this Jewish man in a kingdom who was one of the advisors to the king. And he was very proud of being an advisor to the king. He was the only Jewish advisor to the king. And after being the king's advisor for several months, the king comes up to him and he says, I want to make you the chief advisor because you do such a wonderful job. But I have a problem. You're Jewish. He says, I can't make you my chief advisor while you're Jewish because all the other advisors would become very upset. So in order for you to become my chief advisor, you have to stop being Jewish. Well, the man's a little bit confused. He really doesn't want to give up being Jewish, but he really, really, really does want to be the chief advisor to the king. So he says to the king, okay, I will quit being Jewish so that I can become your chief advisor. And the king is pleased, and the man is pleased, but a little ambivalent feeling there. And the man goes home to his wife, and he says, guess what? He says, I have the good news and the bad news. The good news is that I am now the chief advisor to the king. And she says, well, that's terrific. That's great. What's the bad news? He says, the bad news is that in order to become the chief advisor, I had to give up being Jewish. And she gets a little upset about that, but she realizes that being the chief advisor is quite an honor, so she learns to live with it. Several months go by with this man being the king's chief advisor. And he's getting more and more frustrated because he really misses being Jewish. Being Jewish was a major part of his life and his identity. So one day he goes in to see the king and he says, Your Majesty, I'm really sorry, but I have to resign my position as your chief advisor because I am going to go back to being Jewish. I'm really unhappy not being Jewish. And the king looks at him and he says, you are doing such a remarkable job as my chief advisor, and I don't want to lose you. So, I'll tell you what. Go back to being Jewish, and you can still be my chief advisor. Well, the man's thrilled, and he runs home to his wife, and he says, guess what? Guess what? He says, I have the good news and the good news. She says, well, what's the good news? He says, well, I am now still the chief advisor to the king. She says, well, I already knew that. And he says, the other good news is we get to go back to being Jewish. And she gets this unhappy look on her face, kind of a scowl, and she looks at him and she says, couldn't you have waited until after Passover? Now, those of you who have prepared Passover Seders know exactly what she's talking about. Preparing a Passover Seder is a lot of work. And in our temple, the women primarily prepared the Passover Seders for years. And eventually, we have a very small temple, and eventually that small group got tired of all the work it entailed. So we began having the Passover Seders catered at restaurants or sometimes in church reception halls, banquet halls, and the women didn't have to prepare the Seders anymore, and they felt better about that. And this went on for a long time. And one year, we were unable to find a restaurant who could cater the Seder. It was right around the Easter holiday, and there was a conflict there, and they were all booked, and it was a real problem. And we looked and we looked and we looked, and we were just about to give up when my wife Mary and I were talking. We said, why don't we try our friend Connie? Our friend Connie owned a local Chinese restaurant. So we thought, can't hurt to ask her. So we went and talked to Connie, and we said, we wanted to know if you think you'd be able to cater the temple's Passover Seder this year. And she got a big smile on her face and like a glow, and she was thrilled. She said, I would love to cater the Seder. And we were happy, she was happy, and we knew it would be a different experience because we had never had a Seder at a Chinese restaurant before. Now, it was kind of late to begin preparing for the Seder, so Connie couldn't order the food from her normal sources, and she had to go shopping at the supermarket, at the local supermarket. And she walks into the supermarket, and she gets all the food for the Seder, and she gets matzah, and she gets kosher or Passover candies, and she gets chicken soup and matzah balls, and gefilte fish, and she buys all these foods for our Seder, and she's at the checkout. You have to understand that Connie is Chinese. She goes to the checkout stand, and she's checking out all these foods for Passover, and the cashier looks at her and she says, you don't have to buy all this food. You could go to the community Seder that the temple is having. And she smiles at the person at the cash register. She says, I would prefer to have my own Seder at home. And she packs up her stuff and walks out. Anyway, that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is Connie did her very, very best to kosher the Chinese restaurant kitchen. She steam cleaned everything 2 or 3 times. She didn't really understand what it took to officially kosher a kitchen, but she did the best job that she could. And she prepared a remarkable meal for us. It was elegant. It was wonderful. And we came, we had this incredible meal, and we all loved it. We all loved it. Even in the kitchen, the workers and the cooks were all trying out the gefilte fish and trying to figure out what kind of Chinese sauce can we put on this to make it edible. And, any of you who have had gefilte fish understand that a lot of people have a difficult time eating it. Anyway, so it was such a great Seder that afterwards, when she came out, we gave her a standing ovation. I think that it was probably the best food that we had at any Seder at any time that we catered it that way. And that is the story of our Chinese Passover Seder. And stay healthy. Bye-bye. Now we have what I call the one more thing segment. And a lot of you have children who have come to you at night and said, when you put them to bed and say, one more thing. Our children did the same. So this is the one more thing segment. And in this episode, the one more thing that I want to talk about is another Seder that Mary and I set up years earlier before we had any involvement with the Jewish community. I was working at a mental health center in Las Cruces, and there were a few of us in the center who were also Jewish. And I suggested that we have a Seder and invite our staff. So the other Jewish people agreed, and we decided to have this Seder. Well, the first thing we had to do was find, again, someone to cater the Seder. None of the staff was going to volunteer. So we hunted around, Mary and I hunted around until we found a Mexican restaurant, a little Mexican restaurant. And we really didn't think that they'd be able to cater the Seder, but we went in and talked to the owner of the restaurant, who was also the chef. And he said, of course I can cater the Seder. He says, I was in the military. He says, and I used to cook all the food, prepare all the food for the Jewish Seders, and I know how to do this. We thought, wow, what a coincidence. He knows how to do this. And I said, well, we'll bring in a lot of the Jewish foods. I mean, like we'll bring in the gefilte fish and the matzo ball and the chicken soup. And he says, I can do it all. I said, even the gefilte fish? He says, absolutely, I can make the gefilte fish. We thought, well, what a deal. He's going to make the gefilte fish and everything. So we went for the Seder. Now, most of the people who came to the Seder were my co-workers who were not Jewish. So only a few of us were Jewish. And I have to tell you that the food was delicious, but not necessarily what we expected. The gefilte fish was definitely not gefilte fish. We have no idea what it was. And it wasn't in balls like you get, like patties that we get for gefilte fish. It was chopped up pieces of something, and it was very good. All the food was good. Nobody complained. We did a lot of singing, which was wonderful, because we had several people who knew the melodies of the songs, and we did a lot of singing. And we did very little ritual, and we did a lot of drinking. So this was what we would call the Mexican Shikker Seder celebration. And on that note, I say bye again. My name's Elwood. I'm Dr. C. I'm Nathan Wood. Real flesh, that's me. Psychologist. And puppet who are here because we care for you. Ta-da! Very good, Elwood. Thank you, Dr. C. I remember that Seder that you had at the Chinese restaurant. You do? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I really liked it. You did? I certainly did. Well, that's good to know. Anyway, I got a question. Why did you make a special story about this? You've had Seders at all kinds of restaurants. Why was this so different? Because usually we Jews don't have Seders at Chinese restaurants. You don't? Is that because you don't like Chinese food? No, we love Chinese food. In fact, Chinese food, every Christmas, lots of Jews have a meal at a Chinese restaurant. So you like Chinese food for Christmas, but not for Passover. That's right. We like Chinese food for Christmas, but not for our Seders. Why is that? Because the Chinese restaurants don't serve the special foods that we Jews eat at our Passover Seders. Do the other restaurants serve that food? Not really. What foods are you talking about? I'm talking about things like gefilte fish, or chicken soup with matzo balls. I remember that gorilla fish. I can understand. I don't like that at all. No. Well, a lot of people don't like the gefilte fish. It's not gorilla fish. It's gefilte fish. Close enough, Dr. C. Close enough. Anyway, a lot of people don't like it, and a lot of the restaurants don't have those foods. You're right. Well, then why did you go to the Chinese restaurant and make a big deal about that? Because it was such a good meal, such a good Seder. Oh, and you really liked it. We really liked it. Well, this is still very confusing. It's okay to go on Christmas, but not on Passover. You got that right. Do you have anything else to say before we stop? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. The Chinese Restaurant Seder, a poem by Elwood SPLINTER. On Christmas, Jews like to eat Chinese food. You must think Chinese food is really good. But at Seders from Chinese, you stay far away. This is confusing, but I have a little more to say. Why go for gorilla fish when you prefer egg foo young? Maybe you like that horseradish, burning your tongue. I really like the chicken soup and a matzo ball, but the gorilla fish tastes really bad. I don't like that at all. So next time you have a Chinese SEDER, I think you should consider just eating from the Chinese buffet for a really scrumptious dinner. The end. Very good, Elwood. Thank you, Dr. C. It's time to say goodbye. Bye-bye. See you guys later. Adios. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss. Ciao. Shalom.